Today, I'm going to be talking about the three most common mistakes I see women make when they're feeling worried, pressured, and stressed. I'm so glad you're taking the time to sit and listen in on this conversation today. And it is my genuine hope that you can take a nugget or two from what I'm about to offer. And the first nugget, I hope, is a shared inner laughter or knowing, like, oh yeah, I do one or all of those things. And I'm not bad or wrong. These are things that like most women and most people do when they're experiencing worry and stress and don't know what else to do. So the first nugget is like, oh, these mistakes I'm making are deeply human and normal, and there's nothing wrong with me. But once I know differently, I can do differently and start supporting myself in a little bit of a different way. And that will be your nugget number two. I hope that you get something from this conversation that you can apply directly today to start transforming your relationship to worry and stress. I was having a conversation with an amazing woman in my life, and we were on a walk and talk. And I wonder if all of us and any of you relating can relate to this, that one of the best things in life is having other women to share in life's ups and downs with. And when we have other women that we can talk deeply with, that we can share our experiences with, that we can vent our frustrations and share in the challenges of life, it just makes life so much better. And we were on this walk and talk, one of my favorite things to do. And we were talking about all the pressures and stressors and difficult things that were going on in this person's life. And it could have easily have been a conversation about me, but in this part of the walk, we were focused on her. And there was a moment in the conversation where I was having a realization like, oh, we're talking about all of these things, the stressors, the challenges, and we're talking about it as if we can find a solution to them. That if we can just understand the problem completely, we can figure out how to solve for it and then therefore get you out of the difficulty, the stress, the worry that you're in. And this is often a reoccurring aha moment I have as a friend, as even a therapist, as a person, that my brain really likes the idea of, if I'm feeling worried or stressed, or if someone else is feeling worried and stressed, then we can just problem solve and workshop the issue until that worry and stress goes away. And if that worry and stress is persisting, it's because we haven't figured out exactly what is needed to create a solution to the external circumstances that the person is going through. And once we create that solve, that perfect conceptualization, that perfect plan of what to do, then that worry and stress is going to magically disappear. And I realized in this conversation with a friend that I was doing that for her. She was maybe wanting me to do that for her. And I realized that that might not be actually the best way to be the best friend that I could be for her in that moment. And so it was a gentle reminder, a gentle invitation for me to step out of the problem solving and fixing it mode and step into something a little bit different to help my friend. And then as a reminder to help myself, being with that pain, that emotional turmoil in a little bit of a different way. So that story represents most common mistake number one that I myself and see other women unintentionally falling into the pitfall trap of. And it is hyper focusing on solving the external circumstances that are related to the anxiety or the worry or the stress. To me, it's the number one pitfall or the most common mistake that humans make, that women make, is that we believe that the pressure, the stress, the anxiety means that there's something about the external situation that is wrong or that is flawed. It is really human to want to solve whatever the external circumstance is that to us feels like it's creating the pain, creating the worry, creating the stress. And to a certain extent, it could be really practical that if there's something really simple going on that you could see if I just made a change with that, quite simply, that would reduce my stress, then we should absolutely do that. If there's a simple fix in the environment, if there's a simple request we can make, if there's a simple thing that we could do differently, then yes, we should absolutely do that, especially if it's going to take the load off in some way and reduce stress and pressure for ourselves. But in my 20 years as a therapist, most often I see that the things that are creating kind of ongoing worry or ongoing stress don't have a simple, practical, quick fix. And or the things that we would like to have changed are outside of our realm and control. It has something to do with somebody else or circumstances that are really difficult to change. And so when we hyper focus on problem solving the outer world, instead of first attending to our inner world around that worry and stress, we kind of end up spinning our wheels and spending a lot of precious time and energy trying to endlessly problem solve out there, where maybe it could be a healing and nourishing step to learn a skill set that helps us to attend to our worry and pressure from the inside out when it's there. The second most common pitfall I see amazing women, myself included, either intentionally or unintentionally do, but it is a mistake. It is not going to help us, is by trying to outrun or numb with productivity and distraction. We're feeling worried or stressed about something, and we notice that when we can accomplish something, when we can have control or influence over something, that we feel better. And that makes sense. Like when we are able to step into our agency, it does help us to feel better often. But what I see unintentionally happening is that we start over functioning in other areas of our life. We start over managing, micromanaging, over controlling, over asserting our influence, and we're doubling down on productivity and or just staying occupied so that we're distracted, so that we're trying to kind of tamp down and numb that feeling of worry or stress on the inside. And this is spoken as a true overfunctioner. I know how to do that well. And every time that I have doubled down on trying to solve what I'm feeling worried or stressed about with hyper research, hyper scheduling, hyper working, hyper focus on the areas of my life that I do feel good about to try to bring all of my attention there, I have always learned the hard way that I've really sold myself short in those moments. And then the kind of shell of a person I become is not the person I want to give to myself, especially my worried and stressed self. And it definitely ends up not being my family's most favorite version of myself. Just ask them in a private moment which version of me they prefer. The version that is outrunning with productivity and distraction, or the one that has chosen to go deeper into understanding and then therefore supporting that sense of worry and stress when I'm having it. What's so tricky about this one, I think for many women, even if you don't identify as like a high achiever or over functioner, even if you're doing it in a little bit more of a toned down, less intense way, is that when we just focus on something productive and when we just find something to distract our attention, the tricky thing is that in the short term, it really works. Like it actually feels better. It feels better to focus on something else. It feels better to feel powerful and like you were able to complete a task, like the laundry is done or the kitchen is clean. And I actually don't want to poo-poo using distraction as a distress tolerance tactic, that can be a really helpful tool to use when used intentionally and on purpose for short periods of time to get through some of our, more difficult moments. It can keep us lifted, it can keep us moving, and can kind of like bridge the gap until we start to feel a little bit better once the intensity of a really strong, pressure point or worry point emerges. So in the short term, it feels better to be distracted and be productive. It really works. And again, not all bad. But the tricky thing is that unless we close the loop, unless we actually complete the stress cycle, unless we actually come back to whatever that kernel of dis-ease was in us, we don't end up actually getting the important information from that worry or stress on a deeper level. So we usually don't take action in the ways that we most deeply need to. We also don't end up having the deep enough relational moment within ourselves to bring orientation and healing to the parts of us that are really struggling on the inside. And we end up unintentionally prolonging our suffering or our relationship or our sense of worry and stress. We end up prolonging it because we didn't fully address it. And I think the main reason why women don't do this is they weren't taught differently. Like we weren't taught how to be with our emotions in a nourishing, strategic, and growth oriented way. We're usually taught that we need to change what's happening with ourselves or with the circumstances in order to get past that emotion as soon as possible. So in midlife and in motherhood, especially, it asks us to contend with our emotional inner world in a brand new way. The third and final for today, most common mistake I see women making when they're worried and stressed is relying solely on venting and sharing to provide relief. And again, venting, sharing, having people that you can be yourself with and share what your pains and worries and struggles are is extremely important. And it can be really relieving and not just a superficial support. I think it's a privilege when we have people in our lives that we feel like we can be ourselves truly and deeply with. I think the problem is that in midlife and in motherhood, in different phases of motherhood, our close relationships usually change and evolve over time. And it's kind of normal and not unusual to go through little periods of time where we feel a little bit more lonely or disconnected. Like maybe we don't feel like our partnership is always that place where we can be totally known or seen. Or maybe our friendships are evolving and changing and we don't really have that access to women where we can vent or share. And so that strategy of dealing with our worry and our overwhelm and our stress is not readily available all the time. And similarly, maybe we do have like a partnership. Maybe we do have friends that we can vent and share to get that relief, but our access to them, our ability to have long enough periods of time where we go deep enough uninterrupted is usually pretty challenged when we have kids living at home. Maybe as they get older, those windows of time get more reliable, but most women I talk to, regardless of the age of kids, are longing for deeper, more profound connections than they either have time for or can get their schedules to sync up into, or they're in a place of not quite having that community yet because they have changed and they've outgrown the friendships that they have had previous and are waiting in that kind of awkward friendship dating zone to find people that they want to partner with and walk alongside. The other reason why overly relying on venting and sharing to provide relief is a kind of making this hit list as a mistake is that even when you have the time and the circle, what are you supposed to do when you've vented and it's provide some relief, but then you go back into the flow of your life. And whatever that pressure or worry or stressor is, it has reemerged. So much of our emotional health and well-being, I think, has to do with how we know and how we have conceptualized how in the private moments of our own experience, how well we're able to work through our emotional inner world. Have we gained the strategic skill set on the inside to know what to do with our emotional turmoil? And I actually hate the words emotional regulation. I think they're so weird. We're not like heat conductors or machines that need to be regulated. It's so weird to me. I actually prefer the words emotional fluency and emotional integration much more than regulation. But, maybe the science talks about emotional regulation, but I'm not thinking about getting to this perfect calm homeostasis. I'm talking about, do you have emotional fluency skills where you are fluent in the language of your emotions and you know what meanings your emotions have and you know what they're asking you to do? And then when I'm thinking about integration, I'm thinking, how do you hold yourself while you're having an emotional moment? How do you bring soothing and support to the emotion without trying to minimize it? And are you able to choose actions that match your values and that are informed by your emotions, but you're not spewing your emotional world over everybody around you? This is big, deep, powerful stuff that you, my friend, are ready for. You have never been more mature. You have never been more capable than you are right now at up-leveling your fluency and integration from an emotional standpoint. And I would love, love, love to fast track your learning here instead of doling it out week by week. I would love for you to hop into the collective where all we're doing is talking about how to live from a heart-centered, high-level, emotionally fluent and integrated place so that you can feel well on the inside, so that you can step forward into vibrant health and emotional well-being, and so that most importantly, you can usher yourself through this motherhood kind of emerging midlife season. You can usher yourself through the threshold of that big identity change, and you can step into relationships that feel amazing, your most creative work yet, in a deeper, more connected sense of who you are, and an enjoyment and a having more joy within and in your day-to-day experience. So all those common mistakes I talked about, trying to outrun it or jump out of it with productivity and distraction, hyper focusing on solving the external circumstances that seem to be the source of the pressure or anxiety, and then overly relying on venting and sharing and not adding in enough internal emotional fluency and integration strategies. Those are so relatable and so human. You're not a bad person if you're doing those things. It's just you're over relying on strategies that don't, maybe in the long term, go deep enough to help you with your worry and your stress when you're stuck in it. The answer, my friend, is that changing your relationship with those feelings is the key. And those difficult feelings that you're having, they are actually the doorway, the entry point to deeper self-knowledge, and they are the access portal into your internal growth. When we get a solid framework and tools that help us to feel skillfully and then do the inner work around what those emotions are asking you to attend to, dealing with anxiety and stress becomes so much more workable, so much less lonely, and so much less like reoccurrent, like I'm on the hamster wheel and I'm not really going anywhere. Becomes so much more productive and progressive. And I want that for myself and for my friends and for you. So I'm curious if you want to share. I love comments, I read them all. Which one of those three do you unintentionally tend to get stuck in? And what is your golden nugget number two? Like, what is your thing, your little aha that you're like, oh, may need to consider this instead of that? Or, oh, think I'm missing a skill in this specific thing. I don't know what to do when I'm here. Sometimes not having the answer, but knowing that there is an answer to be sought is the biggest aha. To me, it's like, oh, turning a page. I'm not just going to keep repeating what I've always done in the past. I've got this blank page and I don't know what I'm going to write on it yet or what needs to be written on it yet, but turning that page and having a fresh blank page of an unanswered question to me is like the first step to knowing and doing something different. I hope you have a good week this week. And the next time you're feeling that worry and that pressure and stress, I hope you'll be like, ooh, there might be something I need to do on the inside around this. And I hope that blank page offers you an invitation into something new.